my border piece on the table face up. And I have my quilt top face down on it. I'm going to put about 3 pins on this end and clamp it to the table so that I can stretch it and distribute everything. I'm not going to stretch it much. I just want to distribute the quilt and the border piece so that we won't have too much in one place and not in another, not enough in another. So I'm going to put a few pins on either end and clamp it to the table. You can pin this to your carpet or your mattress, not a water bed, but something to just distribute it, and then start in the center and pin it a few times. We'll get this distributed out. Then when we sew it, our border piece is plain. It has no seams in it, and it's on the bottom. All of our seams are up here where we can see them as we sew and make sure that they're turned in the right direction, the correct way that they should be ironed. I'll flip this around, add the other one to the other side, and then go to the sewing machine and sew them on. I have my border pinned on. It is on the bottom. The new border piece is on the bottom. The quilt top is on the top. You still get it even with that scant 1/4 inch on your machine. And we're going to start sewing. You don't have to back stitch or anything. We're going to put on another border, so it will be fine like it is. Remove your pins just before you go over them. If you happen to have a seam in your border piece, if it was not long enough and you had to seam it, mark that in some way so that you will know when you get to it to make sure that it is lying flat as it should be. We're going to go over our seams gently. We'll get this first border on, flip it around, do the other end because I've already pinned it, and we'll be ready to measure for the next border. I have the little borders on the ends of my quilt now. When I go to my ironing board, I take the whole quilt and flop it down behind on the far side of the ironing board, except for the side I need. It gets it out of my way and I don't have to worry with it. I've tripped over them too many times, so I found out the other side of the ironing board is the best. I'm going to put it on the ironing board with the new strip on top. I'm going to iron my borders toward the strip. I want to set this seam just like I always do and iron it open. Work with as much of it as you can get on the ironing board at a time and pull it on down. When we get done, we'll flip it around and do the other end, and then we'll put it back on the board and measure for the other side. I'm ready to measure for my next border, but I have put my quilt on the board sideways. This is the top and that's the bottom. But instead of me trying to measure from here and bending over and trying to measure in midair there, I'm going to put it sideways and I can measure it a lot easier. This one is 38 3/4. 38 3/4, and write it down. I have the first border on now. I'm ready to measure from side to side and get that measurement. I'll put that on the top and the bottom, and then I'll measure from top to bottom and put those on the sides, and we'll have our last border on. I have already cut 5-inch strips because I want to have a final border of 4.5 inches, which is, these are 6, so you want to stay in multiples, 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6. These are 6, so I'm going to make the border 4.5, so I have to cut it 5. So we'll get that on now. Our quilt top is finished. We have the little border and the big border on there. Now you can put as many borders as you would like on your quilt, but don't overdo it. Don't just make the quilt bigger with borders, but you can enhance it with several borders. When we get ready to quilt this, we need to consider these large areas for maybe special motif quilting and something on the border, really make it stand out. I hope you've learned something from this show. I hope you've enhanced your skills, and I hope I've tweaked your interest on a few things. Until I see you again, happy quilting.